Good morning, welcome to Norfolk. This is a very short video just to go through the details of the laser kiln. I'll walk you through step by step and show you all the kiln from all angles. Now, there are two spy holes at the front. You've got your controls here. This is for the front burners and this one is for the back burner. And this one is the dial showing the amount of gas pressure going into the kiln. That's what you monitor throughout the firing. In terms of temperature, otherwise, there's also a thermocouple there that goes in the side, which is battery operated. And when I had it set up, I had it some distance away, just on a little shelf on the wall. It was an indicator of the temperature, but it doesn't tell you anything about heat work. So you always need to use Orton cones when you're firing with this kiln. Turn that one off, so the battery, that just takes a 9-volt battery. I think I might have some and I'll put them in the pack for you. Sorry, I'm losing my voice a bit as well, which doesn't help. The kiln is on casters, but it is still very heavy to move. And so you probably need to move it comfortably, at least 2 people, and be prepared to push very hard if you've got any slopes. So if I open the kiln, there are 4 handles for the opening, and you pull it out towards you before pushing it back. Now, inside the kiln, you will note that there's a cross painted, probably in red iron oxide, not by myself, but it's very useful because that cross tells you that it's lined up with this spy hole. So when you do a firing, you want a shelf that is just slightly below that, so where you can put your cone pack and see if you've achieved the heat work. There is another spy hole at the bottom. I always put in 2 cone packs for each firing, 1 at the top, 1 at the bottom, with 3 cones, 1 below desired temperature, 1 at the desired temperature, and 1 above the desired temperature. And here's an image I found of the cone packs in the kiln once the firing is completed, just to give you an idea of where they are placed. Another quirk I found with this kiln is that it is cooler at the top than at the bottom when it's being fired. For this reason, you will find in the shelves there is 1 shelf that is larger than the others, and that is because I popped this in at the top of the kiln to help keep the temperature more even. Anyway, that's the kiln itself. You see there are 2 burners. I will go through the burning process, how I start them, in a little while. All this will be packed away, so just take a good look. That goes there. You've got this thermocouple there. Walking round to the side of the kiln, you see I've got a couple of fabrics there. I will be sending those along with it because that's what you use for going into reduction. So, and then that's just the back of the kiln with the chimney on the top, which is basically, I can't reach up very well, a vent. And I usually have a couple of fabrics, 1 at each side. And depending on the sort of firing I was doing, I would start to close it off with more fabrics up to about here and here, leaving that open to get reduction. But it varies on what work you're doing, so you'll just have to play with that. Okay, when it comes to the gas bottles, it's relatively simple. You've got a connector that goes into a gas bottle or your main gas terminal, and two more ends to go into more gas bottles. And we'll send this all with you, but this is what it all connects to. So you've got the gas going in, it will still be connected, and then that's the gas pipe that goes down into the kiln, and then you've got the gas pipes with two feeds, one going into here and one going into here, and you just need a good spanner to tighten them up. Now, I've got to admit, this is not something that terrified me, so I haven't done it myself personally. Whenever I got the gas delivery, I'd bat my eyelashes and get the gas man to connect it all up for me. That way I knew it was done up tight. Now, I know this section on the gas bottles is probably about as clear as mud, so I will do a separate video once Neil is here and get him to set up the gas bottles in a row, all piggybacked, and explain it on a separate video. Now, it's really important to remember to turn the bottles off when you're finished. As you use the gas, it will affect the pressure that goes into the kiln itself, and so you need to keep an eye on that, and more often than not you are replacing the gas or getting them regassed before the bottles are completely empty. Now let's look at starting the kiln. Is turn on the gas, and it's up to you whether you turn on the gas for both bottles or just one. The whole purpose of these link systems is that if it's turned on, both of them, the gas will go from one bottle to the next, to the kiln, and so you're not having to swap bottles over mid-firing. So I don't know how easy this is going to be, because filming lighting the kiln and lighting it, you need more hands than I've actually got, but I will do my best. Okay, so these are your kiln controls, and as you turn them on, there should be some, I don't know how much gas, you'll hear the gas going. Now, initially, you have to hold in the red button whilst pressing the black button, and keep holding it even though the flames have lit, for about 30 seconds or so. Now, sometimes it takes a while, especially on that back burner, for that to fire. I'm not sure how efficient it is. Hence, I usually crawl underneath, well, reach to the back and light it with one of these. Oh, I managed to find a tripod for my camera, so let's light the kiln. So I've got the gas open. As you can see, that's not working, so I'm going to use this. pressure down. I usually start really low at about the 25 mark, especially if it's bisqueware. You don't want it be getting so hot your pots will start exploding if there's any dampness in there. So with that, I will send one of these with the kiln, and I'll get the other half to see if he can get the electrical thing started. But to be honest, I prefer to use this. I feel safer. So once that front burner has been going for a few minutes, and you've got a little bit of warmth, I often start with the door open, so I can check that I've got no pots hanging over the edge of my shelves about to blow up, and so I can gradually put a bit of heat in. Then once I'm confident that I've achieved some warmth in the kiln and it's safe to do so, I'm going to turn on the back burner. Note the electric ignition isn't working here, so I'm going to have to use the lighter again. I also need to turn the gas up because you're now sharing that gas with the back burner. I'm just going to get this door out of the way. So now you can see that both burners are going. Now, I am definitely not an expert on firing gas kilns. I bought this because I couldn't use an electric kiln where it was, and basically I did very basic firing. So you may find it useful to talk to someone or reach out to someone who's actually got a laser gas kiln, and they'll give you better advice than me as to how to get the best out of it. But basically what I was taught with gas kilns is you start off, and then every half an hour you just up the gas a little, keep good written records, and I'll pop an example of that to you so you can compare how long it's taking from firing to firing, what temperature it gets to, how long, etc. Of course, once it's bisque fired, it's a lot quicker because you can turn the gas up higher more quickly because you're not worrying about moisture in the pots. Okay, so that's it as far as increasing the gas. It's really simple. It's just like an old-fashioned gas oven basically, and you'll see that you can get the pressure up really high. It's roaring, so I'll turn that down and turn it off. Okay, now once you're confident that all the moisture has left the kiln, it's getting up to temperature, just pop in the bungs, and you will need to remove these throughout the firing to check the state of the cones that should be placed behind them. What I would do when I'm placing the cones, just to check I'm in the right place, quite often I'll sit them, if it's not quite high enough, I'll put them on a bit of fire brick, the cone pack, and I use a night light candle next to them, or put a torch in so I can actually see that I can see the cones when I close the door. Basic stuff, sorry if I'm teaching you things you already know. So this is the setup for the top of the kiln while you're firing. So I always have kiln bricks on the top of my kiln, and I start off with two just at the very edge and a big gap, so you've got some air circulating through. You need that to get up to temperature. Once you start getting up to the temperature you desire for going into reduction, you can then start to close off the vent at the top of the kiln. And you need some nice thick leather gloves to do this because it gets rather hot. I think I only did a reduction firing once, and so I'm definitely not an expert in that field. I think you need to leave at least a 15 centimetre gap. The one time you cover the whole of the chimney vent is when you've turned off the kiln and you want things to cool down slowly. So you do that at the end of every firing when the kiln and the gas is turned off. Should you wish to increase the height of the chimney, you could do this by laying fire bricks around the vent at the top. You wouldn't need to cement them together. I'm not convinced by doing that it actually increases the draw of oxygen through the kiln. And here I found in my photographs an image of the bricks acting as dampers over the chimney, and there's a firing taking place. And then here's an example of footage I have taken when I've put the kiln into reduction, and you can see a blue or bluish flame coming out of the top of the kiln, and then when you remove the bungs from the front of the kiln, you can see the greeny blue flame coming out of the front where the vents are, showing that it is in reduction firing. I also found some time lapse of me unpacking the kiln after a firing. You can see where the cones have gone over. I wish I could unpack a kiln this fast in real life, but it's never happened yet. And yeah, voila, that gives you an idea of how closely packed you need to do the kiln, especially if you're in reduction. Well, I hope that's enough to cover the basics for the firing and how the kiln works. Maintenance, every now and then, I give the gas things a little brush with a wire brush. One of these, just give it a bit of a rub, but on the whole, I've not had any problems. It really is very simple and far less expensive than electric kilns these days, I think, to run. Just to give a comparison, I have an electric kiln that's probably, it looks bigger, but the inside is pretty similar in size, maybe a little bit bigger, and it cost me 50 quid to do the last firing, up to 1245 in temperature, and that's just one firing. So I'm not sure what the price of gas bottles are now, but I think it comes to less than that. Just to go through what I'm including, I will list all these, but just to show you, there's one extra large shelf, 4 large shelves, 4 half shelves, and props. As I say, I'll list them all for you. A full 2 fire bricks, the other one's on the top of the kiln there. Some broken bricks, I use those for putting my cone packs on in front of the vents. And I think I've got 4 hard bricks up there. But don't worry, I'll list them for you. And finally, I have found a photograph of the shelter my kiln was under in my previous address when I was using it. Don't be fooled by the roof. What it doesn't show here was we had some fireproof board actually above the kiln vent so that the roof wouldn't melt. And I had a very tall ladder so that I could climb up and close the dampers off over the chimney. Hope you found that useful. Sorry it's taken me so long to get round to it, but I've been taking part in this exhibition. Here's an example of my work. That's the crow on the box there. And that's been a bit distracting over the last few days, so apologies for that. If you have any questions, maybe we can have a chat on Sunday. You let me know what time is good for you, not too early in the morning, please. And in the meantime, I just need to add that more than happy for Bob to come and collect the kiln on the 8th of September. Not a problem there, but I will expect the balance that's outstanding to be paid in full before the kiln is taken. I will also add that I have found a user manual for the kiln and some of my firing logs, which I'm going to send along with it, that I hope you will find will be of some benefit to you. Anyway, any questions, let me know what time and we can arrange a call on Sunday. Bye for now.